You mentioned Ajax, Ten Hag. We know they had a successful run with him, of course, in the Champions League. Here's what Joan Laporta had to say on Frenkie de Jong, who knows that Ajax team well. There are many clubs that want him, not just Man United. We have no intention of selling him. He wants to stay. I'm going to do everything to keep Frenkie, but there's also a salary issue that would have to be adjusted. Now, not only that, here's a sport cover too. Palanca activada. So this is a little favor now for Joan Laporta, a teeny tiny favor of 207.5 million euros to, of course, now spend on these transfers. We heard from Gemma Soler yesterday telling us a little bit about what the plan is now to get several players, and now apparently in that plan is still Frenkie de Jong. Sid, does it surprise you to see Laporta saying this today?
Yeah, a little bit. It's surprising to hear him say it in terms that seem so decisive. I think one of the things that was interesting, though, is watching him say this. This was an event to honour Johan Cruyff today. He was very calm. He stood in a circle of journalists for about 15 minutes and talked through all sorts of elements of what Barcelona are going to do now. It wasn't a kind of a classic Laporta performance. You know, it wasn't bombastic, it wasn't pugnacious, albeit the words, when written in black and white, looked very, very strong indeed. I must admit, I thought they were a little more tempered than they look in black and white. I think he was calm about it. And of course he said, but of course there needs to be a conversation about the salaries of players. And so I think we have to look at this in the context of the fact that we know there are negotiations ongoing with Manchester United. We know that when you say, I'm going to do everything I can for him not to go, there is still a possibility that he does go, because of course you need the economic impact that a sale of this would have on the club. We know that there's not just sporting criteria in play, there are economic criteria in play as well. But it was quite striking to hear him say this, that I want to keep him. I think in a way this is a message, isn't it? It's a message to Frenkie de Jong that if you are going to stay, we need to talk very, very seriously about your salary, and we need to look into that. Not just Frenkie de Jong's, by the way, but everybody's, and perhaps as well a message to United as in to say to them, we don't need to sell this guy, and we're not going to sell this guy. In other words, the offers have to be very, very big for us to let him go. I don't necessarily think that this means it's guaranteed that he stays, but it was definitely an interesting step back towards that.
Yeah.
Welcome to Manchester United, Erik ten Hag. Season's not even what. The season's weeks away and he's already having a really bad weekend. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's got, all of a sudden Barcelona may be doing an about turn on a key player that Man United want and need. And on top of that, you have one of the biggest players of this generation deciding that he wants out of the club. So if you want to know the hurdles that the new manager at Man United needs to get over and has to get players in, it's going to be a long summer for him till the end of August with all these twists and turns. When you think you got a player, when you think they need the money, all of a sudden things change. And yeah, it's going to be an intriguing few weeks till the end of the transfer window, particularly for Manchester United and Erik ten Hag.
And we're not even talking about the start of the season yet. No. I mean, this is something that's just beginning now for Ten Hag. Like you said, welcome to Manchester United, and welcome to Barcelona too, with the economic problems. Sid, that of course, you know, has been a hot topic for the last years now, and especially with Joan Laporta now at the center of it. But my question is, and I'm sure a lot of people have the same question, where is this 207.5 million coming from?
Well, let's try and make this as simple as we possibly can. This is a deal with a company to essentially sell 10% of the TV rights money from La Liga TV rights that Barcelona will make for the next 25 years. Now, at the moment, Barcelona make 166 million euros. So in other words, every year, 10% of that, 16 million euros in terms of the current deal, but that deal could change, will go to Sixth Street, this company, for the next 25 years, which comes to a total of around about 400 million euros. In other words, Barcelona would half the amount that they take for that 10% of the TV rights. But of course, in return for doing that, essentially selling an asset or selling potential earnings, they're going to take 207 million euros now. The other part of this is that Barcelona have got an agreement from their members to sell up to 25% of the TV rights. So they want to do another deal like this for 15% more, which they think they can get closer to 400 million euros for it. Now, of course, if we extrapolate that 10%, it takes us to 311, 312 million euros. They think they can get better than that, get as high as 400 million euros, which of course would make the total amount of money coming in now 600 million euros, which would put them in a position where they could start buying players again at a rate of €1 spent for every euro they bring in, if they reach those targets, and also if they reach some of the other targets in terms of reducing salaries across the board. So it puts them, in theory at least, in a much better economic position. It also saw them through the economic year. It was really, really important. They did this before the 1st of July. And as Laporta said today in this conversation, and as I say, he was very calm in the way that he analysed this, which isn't always his way, because he's normally very pugnacious, he's very enthusiastic. This time it was very calm, talking through it. He said, look, what we've done is we've taken the pressure off. By getting that first 207 million euros, we've now taken the pressure off. And now we can think calmly between now and August about how we do this. Do we sell a share of basically the retail branch of the club, Barca BLM, Barca licensing and merchandising, or do we sell another 15% of the TV rights? That's their intention at the moment, according to him, that if they can sell another 15% of TV licensing of the TV rights and get enough, they might not even need to sell BLM, let alone go selling all their players. There's still a long way to go, but they feel like they're in a much better position.
And do you think that it's a good plan what they have right now, Sid?
Well, look, I think we have to put everything in context. And of course, the context of this is that this board inherited a mess. And the way they describe it themselves as, there was a phrase a few weeks ago where they said, when we took over, the club was clinically dead. Now we're in intensive care. What we really want to do is get down onto the ward and be able to eventually recover and come through this and come out the other side. And so given that situation, they were in a position where they absolutely had to hit budgetary targets before the 1st of July. So is it a good idea to sell 10% of the money you're going to make from TV rights over the next few years? Well, no, of course not, because you're essentially releasing an asset. But you need to. And so in that context, you need to, and so it's a risk you're prepared to take, and it's a financial transaction. The next question is, what's the next best way of moving on from here? Is it another 15% sale of your TV money, or is it maybe to sell 49.9% of BLM, which is one of the things they're talking about, and build that into a joint venture? Now, these are business decisions which, of course, go hand in hand with sporting decisions, and you also know that you need to reduce salaries across the squad. You know that you need to generate money through player sales as well. But all of this comes as one big package. Now, remember a few weeks ago, we were told by Laporta himself, I think it was, or the vice president, I must confess, I can't remember which one of the two it was now, said that even if we make 600 million euros right now from what's been known as these financial levers, it would not necessarily put us directly in a position where we could just spend happily. A few weeks after that, the president of La Liga said, well, if they can get to 500 million euros, they'll be all right. Now they're saying they feel like they're closer. And why do they feel like they're closer? Because they're more optimistic about player sales. They're more optimistic about bringing players in for the kind of fees they want, about being able to spread the cost over. And they keep saying, we won't be stupid. We won't just throw money at things now, even though, of course, they recognise that they have to buy lots of players to build the squad up. There was a lovely line from I think it was last week or the week before. He said, it's very difficult to breathe in and breathe out at the same time. And that's, of course, what they're trying to do now. To save money, but at the same time, bring players in. And that's a really difficult balancing act.
I carefully listened to what Sid said, and for me it's just postponing the problems, you know. And you have to sell players. You have the possibility to sell Frenkie de Jong. You don't. So you're already going the wrong way. And you and I, if we are in debts, you know, it won't happen to Craig because he's very rich, but it can happen to us. Our banker will come to us and say, you know what? Before, if you get some money before spending it, you know, you will have to recover and make sure that your debts are completely at zero. It doesn't happen to them. I know Strasbourg in France and Bordeaux this season, they're going to be relegated with the administration because they are in debt. That club, I'm sorry, I have nothing against Barcelona, but they have to pay for that. They have to be punished at a certain point. They owe 1.6 billion. They get 207.5 million, and they spend it on players. No, I'm sorry. For life, society doesn't work like that. Viewers are watching us and saying, why they don't pay for what they owe first and then recover? Because it's going to be maybe the end of Barcelona for maybe 10 years. But it has to be like that. Some people have to pay for their mistakes, huge mistakes. And for me, they get the money and they carry on. they carry on making mistakes.
I'm curious though.
I think in Barcelona's defence, just thinking in Barcelona's defence, or maybe not in their defence, more a case of trying to kind of explain some of the mechanisms. There's a couple of different things going on at the same time here. One, of course, is the overall economic situation of the club, and the other is the question of fulfilling the financial fair play rules in La Liga, which, by the way, are rules that are put in place before the event rather than after the event. This isn't a case of looking at your money and saying, right, you have to pay a fine or you have to, pay some sort of punishment because you've broken the rules. If you try and register players and you are not within that criteria, you simply cannot register them. So in that sense, Barcelona have already paid for their mistakes. And one very simple way of explaining that is that they lost Lionel Messi. Now, the greatest player in their entire history. They lost him because of that financial difficulty. The other thing that we should probably explain here is that this 207.5 million euros that comes in is just a part of an attempt to regenerate money. And so that doesn't immediately go, here's 207 million euros, that's 207 million euros on spending on players. It doesn't work like that. There's a huge amount of balancing going on. So it will be that. There will be the hope maybe of somewhere closer to 400 million euros for another 15%. Then maybe the BLM thing will go through as well. There will be some sales, I am sure, of players. There will be some players who depart that they try and save money on their salaries. For example, Lenglet, although they'll have to pay a bit of that. They'll try with Umtiti. But it's not that easy, of course. And this is what they discovered last summer. They had a whole load of players they thought they could move on that just said, well, no, actually, I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. And so all of this goes hand in hand. There are a lot of operations going on. So it's not entirely fair, I think, to say, well, here's 207 million euros. And look, they're spending it again. Well, they'll spend some of it. And they'll spend some of it if they can balance across the board, not just, here's my money and out it goes again.
Yeah, which we know with that balancing act, of course, it would be to try to sell maybe Frenkie de Jong. So my question, Mark, is it true what Joan Laporta is saying, or is this just a strategy to maybe get Manchester United to pay a little bit more?
I think he's bluffing in terms of there's a lot of clubs that want Frenkie de Jong. Of course, a lot of clubs would like Frenkie de Jong, but this summer the market is different, and Frenkie de Jong is on the top of anyone's priority list apart from Man United. I think if you look around the clubs in Europe, if there was another buyer out there, that Barca would have been able to negotiate a bit harder. I was told a couple of days ago that United and Barca have pretty much agreed a fee. What is holding it up is De Jong. De Jong is reluctant to leave Barcelona, but knows he may have to. So United and Barca are ready to do business, but it is an issue with De Jong, and his wages are a factor for United as well as Barcelona. Apparently he's on huge wages at Barcelona, wages that even United wouldn't pay. So he has to decide whether to stay at Barcelona and, make it difficult for them to bring the players in, or to go to Man United. So for me, this isn't about a lot of other clubs wanting Frenkie de Jong. I think Laporta is bluffing on this, but I do think that United still have a battle to get it over the line because he isn't convinced by this horrible word project that Ten Hag has got at United. It's not a great project if people like Ronaldo want to jump ship straight away, but it's still there to be done, and at the moment it's not done. Until it is done, I should say, then he's a Barcelona player, and you can never trust Man United to get a deal done until it's done.
If they can force United though to pay another 10 or 20 million, for Barcelona at the moment, that goes a certain amount of way. So it could be a bluff in that way. And why wouldn't you play a sort of strategy saying, oh yeah, you thought you were getting De Jong, but things have changed for us, so maybe if you want him now. And as Mark has said many times on this show, United have been very slow in coming forward. They've just wait, and they've left managers out to dry. But if Barca think they can get 10, 15, 20 more, why wouldn't they do that in their predicament? And let's be honest, it's a 50-50 split here because they need the money, and Manchester United, they need the players. So something's going to have to give on this one. I think this deal will get done, it seems to me, but it might just cost Man United a wee bit more than they initially thought. Yeah,
I think it's a strategy too from
Let's play poker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.